Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here, and this is apparently a thing I'm doing. I did not really expect to be looking at another crowdfunding campaign so soon, but another one that is related to animation, and it's related to someone that is also within the community that I reside in. So I figure, why not take a look at it, especially kind of hot off the heels of Butch's campaign, to see if there are any comparisons that could be made here. So this is Mr. Enter's campaign for the pilot of his series Growing Around. This is a series that he has worked on for 4 years, and he has done scripts, he has worked with artists to develop characters, and he has extensively worked upon this world. To my knowledge, I don't think he's made any actual animation related to the show yet. I feel like if he has, he probably should have put it in this little video here, of which it's all just still images. So this is really kind of like his big first chance to actually make his series that he's been developing and working on. And I'm going to say the good things first here, in that it is very much apparent that John has put in the work here in terms of actually collaborating with people, in terms of actually researching what this sort of thing costs, in terms of putting together perks here, where he has many different perks that are all related to the show. If you look at Butch's Kickstarter campaign, I didn't actually go through the rewards, but all the rewards were things like get an autograph from Butch Hartman, get a private art session with Butch Hartman, get this and that from Butch Hartman. To Enter's credit, these are all things that are related to the show, and for decent prices, I mean, if you're donating $90, that's a lot for a t-shirt, but for a specialized t-shirt that's only going to be in the campaign, that might be around the right price if you're going to be donating that much anyway. None of these are like, I don't know, get an art lesson from Mr. Enter or something. Nothing that egotistical. It's all just things that kind of really fit with the project, which I think is a really good plus. And I do want to definitely give him credit that he has been working on this show for years and years. This is something that he is clearly very passionate about. And I mean, you could say many things about Mr. Enter, but he is an ambitious guy. He really is. I don't know, and he not only is he ambitious, but he does work hard to try to make his ambitions come true. Has he bitten off a little bit more than he can chew here? Possibly, but I just want to say that, like, should this actually get funded, I have no doubts that he is going to deliver a pilot, a fully formed pilot. Now, I don't know whether his writing is up to snuff. I don't know if the people that he would hire would be good enough. I have no idea. I'm not going to judge the pilot that doesn't exist. I don't know. The fact is that it's kind of an unknown at this point. Enter has no credits on anything actually official. He's just done reviews over the years, and that's not to say that he can't break into this field, because I think he absolutely could, should his writing be good enough. I'm just saying that right now it is very much an unknown, whether he could do it or he couldn't. Maybe so, maybe no, and it would be really great to just kind of see him get a chance at this. And in that way, I'm rooting for him. There is just some problems, though, and the very first one is the budget here. He has set this goal at $350,000, and that is a fixed goal, meaning if he raises it's $200,000. Everyone gets their money back. He's not going to actually be able to make it with this crowdfunding. He might start another crowdfunding campaign. He might try to raise his own money some other way, but he is shooting for that all or nothing, which is very commendable. If $350,000 is what he thinks he needs, it's commendable for him to say, you know what, it's this or nothing. But I do think he's overshooting things quite a lot here. If you look at his chart, he has $250,000 for the animation. And make no mistake, this Kickstarter, this Indiegogo, is just for the pilot. His claim here is that the pilot gets funded. That's this, and he says in the actual video that this is for the pilot. Every episode is going to be its own little miracle. I don't know how well Patreon will continue this show after the pilot. His plan is to try to keep it going with a Patreon. I mean, my first kind of like eyebrow raise is that if he needs $350,000 for the pilot, how much would he need on a Patreon, like per episode or per month, to keep the show going? I mean, pilots are a little bit more expensive because you have to do a lot more like world building and start from the ground up versus a series where you kind of have a template to work from. But if he wants to keep like this level of animation quality and this level of everything, that's a crazy Patreon that I don't even know that some of the top earning Patreons out there could even come close to be honest. Okay, so there's that, and then there's just, if he thinks that he is as good a writer as he's claiming he is, if he's as confident in this series as he is, I think it would make sense to make a lower budget, short version of what he wants to make, and then use that to kickstart everything else. See, that's what a lot of people in the industry do when they make pilots, when they make proof of concepts, they don't shoot for the stars right away. They don't have like a full professional pilot necessarily, as much as just kind of like a few minute short that really demonstrates what the value in this is and why it should be picked up. This budget does make sense if he wants to shoot for something that's 100% professional. But the problem is that I don't think he really needs that. I mean, people animate on YouTube. There are many people who animate with a very small team or just by themselves. I understand Enter wants a little bit higher quality than just like something that like an animation storyteller could put out in 1 week. I understand he wants something a little better than that. But I think if you were to raise, let's say, a modest 40,000 or 30,000 and then give, I don't know, 10K of the budget over to animators, and you farm out all of the best animators from YouTube, since this is going to be a very like creator driven show, you get all of those people together, pay them a really good wage, something that they're probably going to see a little bit better than just monthly on YouTube, get them together at least to make your pilot, and then from there maybe try to push for something a little more professional. I want to see Growing Around. I honestly do. I have critiques about the idea and what's been presented so far, but in general, again, I feel like John's a really passionate guy that really has a vision, and I want to genuinely see what he can do. So that's just kind of my big critique. I really do wish that he would have started with a much smaller budget, started with a much smaller scale, and not necessarily shot for the moon right away, but work on a smaller scale project and then use that to show everyone, look, this is what you're getting. This is why you should invest in me, because he's got a month left in his Kickstarter, right? So to get to $350,000, he would have to raise about 11 grand a day, right? And he's not at that point. Granted, the Kickstarter launched about a day and a half ago. This is a lot of money raised in that time. That's something he should 100% be proud of. But if he can't raise that amount in the start of this campaign, right when people are going to be the most interested in talking about it, if he can't even raise the $11,000 in like the first or second day, I just don't know that he has really any hope of reaching that goal, unfortunately. So, all right, let's actually talk about the project here. Going Around is a continuity-driven, lighthearted show where the wild and not to mention chaotic imagination exuded by a world built, maintained, and ruled by children pushes what would normally be mundane scenarios. The Dunn family and their friends find themselves on their day-to-day lives towards the extremes, showcasing how you never really stop growing up, or in their case, growing around. This is just like a very long sentence. If I had to critique the presentation, I would say that, like, you know, you want to kind of have your pitch in maybe like one line or two. You don't want to have like this paragraph that has to explain what your show is. If he were to maybe come up with a catchier tagline or just a better way to pitch it, or even maybe just simplify his concept a little bit, I feel like he'd have a little bit better of a time pitching this thing, because I just feel like it needs to be worked on just a little bit more in that way. As far as the actual concept, it's very tough to say, because he throws out a lot here. He throws out a lot of ideas. He wants to cover pretty much every controversial subject that exists. Like, he lists off about 6 or 7 of them, or every subject that mainstream animation doesn't want to cover. He lists them all out. He lists out like a ton of different concepts and ideas for the world. And because it's so vast and so expansive, I don't really get a great picture of exactly what's going to be going on day to day, episode to episode, which I think is just kind of another thing that he really needs to work on. The world building part, I think he's got down. I think he's got this just crazy world with tons of characters, tons of scenarios, tons of things he wants to cover, but I do think he could really use to refine some of that down to give just like an example of like what an episode would be like in the pitch here. I just feel like it should really be simplified a little bit in his pitching, and he should focus a little bit more on the smaller scale than just on the huge scale. So let's see, better known as Mr. Enter on YouTube, I'm for reviewing animations, which I've been doing for years now, learning what works in the medium, what doesn't, ready to make my own series, at least the pilot. Been planning this for years, building into the world, writing dozens of scripts. I feel that Growing Around can truly be an amazing cartoon, entirely creator driven, free from network control, a show that tackles harsh themes with good humor. So yeah, I've already kind of shown this. I kind of wonder like who he's going to get to animate this. Like, if he's got this kind of budget, can anyone just kind of like contact a studio in Korea or something and just have them do that? I don't really know. I'm not saying that he can't do that or that he doesn't have a plan. I'm just saying that it's not really stated here, and I don't really know. The impact. Growing Around exists to tell a story. It's a cartoon that takes you on a journey, one that is designed to make you feel for the characters and their struggles. It can be watched by anyone of any age. The stories and its morals can ring true for anyone. It's escapism that will leave you with something to take back to the real world, be that laughter, inspiration, or a lesson. This feels like I hate to say it, but it does kind of feel like a lot to say nothing. I don't get a good grip of what the show really is. It's like, this is a show that's going to follow the characters on these crazy journeys and it's going to make you feel things. It's like, okay, well, great, but like, what's the tone? What's the angle? Is it more comedy? Is it more drama? Is it, he said continuity driven, but like, how heavily continuity driven? Is this going to be overarching stories? Is it just going to be continuity nods between the episodes? Is it going to be how? I don't really know. He doesn't need to go into all this detail, but just from reading this here, I just don't get a great grasp upon what this series truly is. Risks and challenges. Provide the pilot gets funded, every single episode is going to be its own little miracle. I don't know how well the Patreon campaign will continue. In turn, that means there will be no filler episodes. While not every single one will move the overarching plot in some significant way, every episode will have some kind of importance. Okay, great. I talked about the Patreon thing. This episode will most likely take longer than the typical 9 months it takes to make a cartoon episode, as we try different animation styles and experiment. Longer than 9 months to make this pilot? I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the experimentation should be done on just like a much smaller scale. Like longer than 9 months. That's... Oh boy. Okay. So let's see. This is my first cartoon. There's no way around this. I'm glad he acknowledges this. I've never done this before. However, I'm placing my future on this. I need this to be the best show than it can possibly be. I think he means that it can possibly be, or else this first cartoon will be my last. Other ways you can help. Okay, so just every way you can donate. Yeah, I do wish that there was a lot more, or at least a little bit more written here, and I do wish that he just kind of gave a little bit better of a summation of what exactly this show is, a better tagline, and the biggest thing is just I wish he had chosen a smaller budget and started on a smaller scale, rather than just diving headfirst into just this very, very, very huge budget. This is just kind of the folly of pretty much so many people that make crowdfunding campaigns. It's just that they I think it's a fear of asking for too little money and then not being able to actually make anything good with the amount of money you get. So I understand why they want to overshoot, but just you overshoot this much, and I'm sorry, but I just realistically don't see this getting funded. A lot of the funding is going to come from Enter's fans, and I feel like a lot of that money has already come in. If you don't know Enter, if you haven't been following him, if you don't really know like how hard he's been working on this and how much he's focused on it, and just the people he's collaborated with and all this sort of stuff, this campaign alone just doesn't give you much confidence that like what's actually going to happen here. I will 100% say it is an okay campaign in just that like the perks are good. There is information here, and although I think he's overstepped his scope in terms of a budget and in terms of wanting to maybe make the pilot like a full length. Actually, I don't really even know if he wants it to be 11 minutes or 22 minutes. He may have said that, but I'm not reading it anywhere in here. I just think that he's kind of overstepped his scope in terms of that. But in terms of like creating a show, at least he's not trying to create a media empire or something like completely nuts like what Butch Hartman was on. So I want to see him work on this, and I really hope that should this crowdfunding campaign fail, which unfortunately I feel like it is going to, I hope he can figure out a way to make this show that he wants to make on a little bit smaller of a budget, or at least make the pilot, at least come up with a way to make something that he can better show off to the rest of the world to get everyone interested in, and not just kind of like the YouTube community. Because as it stands, I think if you're an outsider looking at this, I'm just not sure there's enough here for you to really get invested in, or that you're going to drop some money on it, especially when it has such a high goal there. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And with that, Pie Guy rules.